Today, we bring a story of a man who discovers that his entire family was making a fool of him for the last 22 years. My name is Jim Reynolds. I am 56 now. I'm 5 feet minus 8 inches and in decent shape. I have been married for 22 years to someone who I thought was my life and soul partner. Her name is Kelly. She is 45, blonde, blue eyes, 5 feet minus 2 inches and built for lovemaking. I would fuck her anytime we were alone together. I loved eating her out, although there were times she didn't quite taste as good. I spent 8 years in special forces right out of high school. I had learned all about explosives. Then 6 years in engineering school. I then started my own company. It has grown and is now a multi-million-dollar construction company. Not too many people know about my years in service. I had to go through 4 years of counseling for me to get rid of my demons. That is why I don't talk about it. I have a pilot's license from before I went into service. I tried to take Kelly for rides, but she never trusted me. From the first time I saw Kelly, I fell in love. We were married 2 years after that. She is from old money. Her maiden name is Moore, a descendant or Richard Moore, from the Mayflower. Kelly's whole family looked down on me as if I were a servant and nothing more. I always bought her anything that I could. I bought her a huge house in Cambridge, Massachusetts, with a 4-car garage. She had to have a BMW. We had 2 kids, or should I say she had 2 kids. John, who is 21, and Dan, who is 19. Both in college. I have bought them each BMWs, all brand new. I have a 10-year-old GMC 4-wheel drive pickup. About 6 years ago, they started treating me like shit. I later found out why. They don't listen to me at all and do pretty much whatever they want. They do listen to Kelly, their mother, though. I hired John about 8 years ago. I thought he was my best friend. The kids seem to love him, though. About a year ago, my wife Kelly left her email open. I was bored, so I decided to read it. I don't know why, but I started looking at all her emails. I could not believe what she was writing about. She said she has hated me from the minute she met me. Her whole family feels the same way about me, and I found out that the kids aren't mine. They are my ex-best friend's kids, John. They were told about 6 years ago. I never knew. He knew Kelly way before I hired him. They get a big laugh at me because it is right in front of me. Rick, my son, and John, my ex-best friend. When I married Kelly, my father-in-law wanted me to sign a prenup, in which I did. It expires in 2.5 years, after 25 years of marriage. It has an infidelity clause that says that if either one of us cheats, that the cheater leaves with nothing. I have a friend, Kevin, from when I was in the service. He knows someone that knows all about spying on people. His name is Paul. He set it up so anytime Kelly writes an email that it also goes to a private account that I now have. I also get copies of emails that my kids write. My whole house is now wired and set up so that I can hear their phone calls, and I have video of what goes on too. If it weren't for Kevin, my whole family would be dead. He talked me out of killing them and asked me about what I could do to my family that would hurt them the most. Take their money, credit, their family name, and pride. To disgrace them in the public. John and Dan's friends all know about how I have been manipulated by my wife and the kids. They laugh at me and make jokes about me. They know all about the prenup and the affair. They can't wait for Tom, my best friend, to come in and take over. I have video of my father-in-law talking about me, how they are going to make it look and sound like I got the money for my company from him. They plan on having John take over my company. They have planned this for years. That is why they had him apply to work for me, and why he has acted like my best friend. The only people that I know I can truly trust is from my old military buddies. I am so glad that I have kept in touch with them. I have hired Paul as a computer consultant for my company. He has wired my company also so that I know who is on my side and who isn't. That means that I had about 1.5 years to plan for a divorce. I had to act the cuck for that whole time. I no longer made love to her. I just fucked her, thinking the whole time how I wasted 22.5 years on her. When I looked back at how she treated me, I just fucked her harder, wanting to hurt her. I only fucked her when I was sure she hadn't been fucked by John. I would send him out of town for business. She never caught on. I know that I had gotten sloppy seconds and that I had eaten John's fuck cream pies in the past, but that was now in the past. I had to keep like I had no idea what had been going on. I had to make it look like John was still my best friend. I would fuck her in public places just to humiliate her. I would fuck her so that her friends would catch us. I got DNA tests done to prove that our kids were not mine, and that they are John's. Their plan was for John to take over the company after the divorce. They had planned on taking me to the cleaners and humiliate me. I had met quietly with a company to buy me out. The guy that was buying me out had been a competitor, but I always knew he was honest. I was going to sell my company on the cheap. I explained to the guy who was buying me out why. He said that we here the only ones for now that would know, including his and my lawyers. The law firm that I had hired for this hated my father-in-law also. That was one of the reasons why I hired them, and they knew it. The law firm told me what I should do: to open a private bank account, open a private phone account. They had suggested that I talk Kelly and the kids into leasing their cars instead of buying new ones. That way they would get a new car every year. Better still, I would not be buying new cars, and it would be a lot cheaper for me. Everyone thought it was a great idea. I started quietly packing my stuff and putting it in a rented storage shed. Everyone would kind of laugh in my face or behind my back. I told Kelly that we should start doing our taxes separately and put the house in just her name for tax reasons. We had to get a new mortgagee in just her name for this. Her whole family thought that was a great idea, easier for her to take the house in the divorce. My new law firm suggested that also so that my credit would not be ruined. She wanted an in-ground pool and a bunch of other changes to the house. I let her have whatever she wanted. I encouraged her. But she had to get a second mortgage on the house. Of course, the loans would also have to be in just her name because the house was now just in her name. Half the money would go for the changes she wanted and half went into my private account without anyone noticing. I still did all the bills. I changed all my insurance beneficiaries to go to charities in case of my demise. I sold my company without anyone noticing. I made sure that the new owners would keep all the employees except for John and his cronies. Within a year, I had everything ready for my departure. I suggested that I treat the whole family, in-laws, and my now ex-best friend John to a 2-week trip to Europe. I know they were laughing at me behind my back, but it worked for me. After all, Kelly was paying for it. I was the one laughing. I bought 150 acres of land in Alaska without anyone knowing. The only way to it is by plane. No one in my family really cared or knew that I still had a pilot's license. I had plans made up for an off-grid cabin on stilts and a shelter for my plane. I hired a company to build it for me. I wanted it to be move-in ready. That was going to take a little bit longer than I was hoping for. So I also bought a house with a large barn-like garage. I would live in Fairbanks, nothing fancy. It is just a simple house where I could keep the motorhome and have a place to stay when I wanted to travel. A military friend bought a new motorhome and registered it in his name. He hated my in-laws also. He had tried to tell me, but love is blind. I gave him $5,000 for him to do that for me plus money for the motorhome. He didn't want the money, but I forced him and my other friends to take money for helping me. From reading Kelly's emails, they thought I was the dumbest wimp. I stopped paying on the house, their cars, all their insurances, and the utilities all were in Kelly's name, so again, it was her credit that was going to be trashed, not mine. I bought a box in Kelly's name and had all the bills sent to it. Kelly and her family thought I was so dumb taking care of all the bills for them with my money. When the divorce is final, her credit will be ruined, not mine. I also won't be working, so no alimony payments. They won't be able to find out what I sold my company for. All the money went to an offshore account. It looked like I had lost the company to the new company. Plus, I plan on disappearing. Just before the trip, I told them that I had a company emergency and I would meet up with them later. They didn't seem to care and were happy that I wasn't traveling with them. The night before they left, I made sure Kelly would remember me. I fucked her as hard as I could. She seemed to love it at first. I also fucked her ass for the first and last time. She was really mad at me for that. She would be sore for a few days. Too bad John. He had been fucking her and her ass for years but denying me. As soon as they flew off for Europe, I went back to the house and grabbed everything I wanted. I left the house wide open. My friend Paul came over and got all the surveillance equipment he had at my house. I paid a moving van company cash to move my stuff up to Alaska. I didn't have much that I was taking. Clothes, tools, fishing gear. I had some guns that I had in a gun safe. Some of them were from my military days. I had those shipped and put in storage until I got to Alaska. I left all the furniture. I made sure they would not know where I was going, leaving no paperwork or anything even saying Alaska. Mike, my son, was never interested in hunting or fishing with me, so he had no idea about where I went on my trips. I didn't close my old phone account. That way Kelly would not know about my plan. I would close it out in about a month after I left. I left my old phone with an old guy at the company. He was not to answer it if it was my wife, but he could call anyone he wanted for a month. The next thing, I went to my in-laws' house. I had keys to their house also. I unlocked it, put all the lights on. I got on Mike, my so-called son's laptop. I posted to a college website that there is a week-long college kegger party at their house. They were always tight with their money also. No wonder they liked John so much more than me. The partiers would destroy their house, their cars, and their boat. I next went to the bank and closed out all my bank accounts, canceled all my credit cards. I had taken from my wife's and mine account $50,000. I sold my truck to a car dealer. After 3 days, I left for Alaska, not telling anyone where I was going. I kept track of what was happening through my wife's emails. No one, not my wife, my kids, my in-laws, or my ex-best friend called to see where I was. They were having a great time thinking it was all on me when it was actually my wife, Kelly, that was paying for it. I took my time seeing all the sights while I was crossing the country, using just cash to pay for anything. I drove to Bellingham, Washington, and got on a ferry and went to Valdez, Alaska, then drove up to Fairbanks. No passport is needed. By the time I got to the state of Washington, Kelly and her family were just getting back from their Europe trip. Seeing their houses and properties wrecked, they still had no idea it was me who set them up. In fact, they still didn't notice I was gone. They were all concerned about their houses and not me. It was the police who started asking about me, not my so-called family. That was Sunday, a day after they got back to the United States, that they started figuring it out. I had given my attorney written power of attorney to deal with my divorce. I told them that in 2 weeks I would check in with them, not letting them know where I was. On Monday morning, Kelly was served her adultery divorce papers. I wanted to sue John for alienation of affection, but Massachusetts does not allow that. I guess that too many state politicians were getting sued. But poor John and his cronies all lost their jobs, per my agreement with the new company owners, with all his belongings gone. What a shame. Kelly now owed more than she had in the bank. All the creditors were after her. Their cars were all repossessed, the power and water had been shut off. Property taxes were now due, and both mortgages were past due. Her and her 2 spoiled, rotten kids would have to move in with her parents in a hotel. Since her parents' home had been totally trashed, her parents had to rent cars for all of them. I felt so bad just thinking of all their problems they were having. John had to move in with them also, since his property was trashed also. He had to beg her parents to rent him a car also. They had all gone from BMWs to little shitbox Fords. Kelly and her family hired some private investigators to find me. Kelly's attorneys tried to stall the divorce. Bad move on their part. The case went very public with the DNA test, and videos of them having sex ended up on the internet. Audio of how long the affair had gone on for, the fact that the whole family knew she was having an affair and that they encouraged it. The whole family planning to ruin and humiliate me in public, take my company, and how they felt about the middle class. There was video and audio of her family paying off politicians and how they paid off public officials, craped on those who were honest. I had it all put on as many websites that like to show that stuff. The divorce finally went through. The judge that was supposed to hear the case had to excuse himself because he was one of the paid-off public officials that was outed. I did reach out to the kids, but they just ignored me. 5 years later, I flew into Boston to wrap up some old business. I went to a restaurant that I knew that her family frequented. They walked right past me and didn't recognize me. I now have long gray hair, a beard, and I am in better shape now. I asked my waiter to send their table a bottle of champagne. The whole family looked 20 years older. They all looked at me, and then after a few minutes, Kelly yelled out, "Oh my God, you son of a bitch." She had recognized me. She told them who I was. John came running up to punch me. I put his lights out in one punch. Then his son, my ex-son, came up thinking he would get me. I put him down too, but not out. Kelly came running up yelling that I had ruined her family, calling me names. The police showed up and arrested me. I had the waiter call my lawyer for me since I didn't think the police would let me. They reviewed the surveillance tapes and released me. It showed me sending the champagne to them and me talking to them very calm. It showed that I just defended myself. If it wasn't for my lawyers planning ahead for what happened and making sure they had copies of the surveillance camera tapes, I do not think the police would have let me go. They were friends of my father-in-law. Kelly called my hotel room and asked if we could talk. I met her in the hotel lobby, making sure we were being recorded. She asked me why I did that to her and her family. I just looked at her in astonishment. I calmly explained that I found out about their plan for me and got them before they got me. I told her that I had found out about her long ongoing affair with John. I then asked her why she married me if she hated me. I didn't tell her that I had the whole house wired or that I was spying on her through her own email. She had lost her house and cars. Mike lost his house and truck also. They all had to go live with their parents. She just said it was nothing personal. She did it at first to get away from her family at first. Then she said it was fun making me do all those things for her, and that they got off on me getting sloppy seconds and me eating John's cream pies. I asked her why she didn't just divorce me when she met John. She said at the time it was fun. In this way she would get everything. I asked her how it was working out for her. I didn't say anything more. I just got up and went back to my room. The next day I left and went back to Alaska to enjoy my life in peace, knowing how much I ruined their lives, their credit, their money, their pride, and of course ruining their name. Much better than killing them. They will have to think of me all the time.
Dear listener, if you have reached this far, please click on the subscribe button. It will be a great help.